The sun hung low over the cracked asphalt of Milford's Old Town Square, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the gathered crowd. It was one of those lazy Saturday afternoons where the air hummed with the distant rumble of engines and the chatter of locals milling about for the annual fair. Kids darted between stalls, selling cotton candy and handmade trinkets, their laughter mixing with the sizzle of food trucks. But in the heart of it all, under the watchful eyes of parents and vendors, a shadow fell over the innocents. 13-year-old Lucas huddled near the edge of the crowd, his backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes wide with the quiet fear of someone who knew trouble all too well. He was small for his age, with tousled brown hair and a faded comic book peeking from his bag, a kid who found escape in stories of heroes, not the harsh reality of his world. The bully, a hulking teenager named Derek, with a sneer that cut deeper than his fists, had been circling him all day. Derek was the kind of local menace who thrived on spectacle, his gang of followers egging him on like hyenas, sensing weakness. "Hey, freak!" Derek barked, his voice booming over the fair's din, drawing eyes from every direction. The crowd parted slightly, a ripple of uneasy curiosity spreading. Lucas froze, clutching his bag tighter. He'd tried to ignore it earlier, slipping away from the taunts at school that had followed him here. But Derek wasn't done. With a shove that echoed like a thunderclap, he slammed Lucas forward, right into the open space before the makeshift stage where a band was setting up. The boy stumbled, arms flailing, and crashed to the ground in a heap of dust and humiliation. Gasps rippled through the onlookers, but no one moved. Phones came out, capturing the moment, as if this was just another viral clip in a world that watched but rarely intervened. Lucas's cheeks scraped the pavement, a thin line of blood welling up, his eyes stinging with tears he fought to hold back. The injustice burned hotter than the sun-baked ground, the crowd's silence a collective betrayal. From the periphery, where the parking lot met the square, came the low growl of a motorcycle engine, cutting through the murmurs like a blade. Ethan Hawk Riley pulled up on his weathered Harley, the chrome gleaming under the fading light. He was a mountain of a man, broad-shouldered and scarred from years in the ring and on the road. Former MMA champion, undefeated until a bad knee sidelined him 5 years back. Now, he rode with the Iron Vipers, a crew of veterans and outcasts bound by codes older than the highways they patrolled. Ethan's face was a map of quiet storms, a jagged scar tracing his jaw from a cage fight gone wrong, eyes like polished steel that missed nothing. He'd come to Milford for a pit stop, chasing ghosts from his past, a promise whispered in a foxhole overseas to a brother-in-arms who'd lost everything here. But fate had other plans. Dismounting with the fluid grace of someone who danced with danger too long, Ethan strode forward, his leather vest creaking softly, boots thudding against the asphalt. The crowd shifted, whispers buzzing like static. Derek straightened, mistaking the biker's approach for backup to his bravado. "Mind your business, old man," he snarled, flexing his arms as his buddies closed ranks. But Ethan's gaze locked on Lucas, who was scrambling to his feet, wiping dirt from his face with a trembling hand. Something in the boy's eyes, raw vulnerability mixed with defiance, struck a chord deep in Ethan's chest, echoing the losses that had hollowed him out. In one seamless motion, Ethan stepped between them, his presence a wall of unyielding calm. "That's enough," he said, voice low and gravelly, carrying the weight of authority earned in blood and sweat. Derek laughed, shoving at Ethan's chest, or trying to. The biker's hand shot up, catching the wrist mid-air with a grip like iron forged in fire. No swing, no roar, just precision from a man who'd broken bones in octagons worldwide. Derek's face twisted in surprise, then pain, as Ethan twisted just enough to make the point without breaking skin. "You pick on the weak to feel strong? That's not power. That's cowardice." The crowd held its breath, the fair's joy suspended in this electric standoff. Lucas stared up at Ethan, hope flickering in his tear-streaked eyes. One of Derek's friends lunged forward, but Ethan released the bully with a shove that sent him stumbling back into his own crew. "Walk away," Ethan warned, his tone leaving no room for debate. "Or learn what real regret feels like." They backed off, muttering curses. The bully's ego bruised more than his body. As the tension ebbed, Ethan turned to Lucas, crouching down to the boy's level. The scent of leather and road dust mingled with the sweet tang of spilled lemonade nearby. "You okay, kid?" Ethan asked, his voice softening, revealing the father he'd never been, lost to a war that took more than limbs. Lucas nodded, but his lower lip quivered. They always do this. No one stops them." Ethan's jaw tightened, memories flooding back, a promise to protect the innocent, sworn under desert stars to a fallen comrade whose son now lived in this very town. He'd buried that oath under miles of blacktop, but here it was, rising like smoke from embers. "Not any more," he murmured, helping Lucas to his feet. "What's your name?" "Lucas," the boy whispered, clutching his bag like a shield. "Ethan. And you just got yourself a guardian for the day." As the crowd began to disperse, applause trickling in like hesitant rain, Ethan felt the pull of something larger. An old vow stirring, demanding he ride not just for himself, but for the broken promises that bound men like him. Little did he know this intervention would summon shadows from his past, corrupt officials turning a blind eye to the town's underbelly, a network of bullies backed by power far beyond schoolyard scraps, and in the heart of it, a secret tying Lucas to Ethan's lost brother, a thread of redemption waiting to be woven. The afternoon light dipped lower, painting the square in hues of gold and amber. Ethan glanced at his bike, then back at the boy. "Come on, let's get you some ice for that scrape." As they walked, the roar of approaching engines hinted at the Vipers catching wind, loyalty, calling them like a siren song. One push in the dirt had ignited a fire, and by nightfall the roads would tremble with the weight of justice unspoken. But for now, in the quiet aftermath, Ethan placed a hand on Lucas's shoulder, the gesture simple yet profound. In a world quick to forget, some promises endured, pulling unlikely heroes into the fray. The fair resumed its rhythm, but the air hummed with change, a biker and a boy, bound by a moment that would redefine them both. The engine of Ethan's Harley purred to life later that evening as he rode Lucas home, the wind whipping through the open fields bordering Milford. Streetlights flickered on, casting ethereal glows on the horizon. Lucas, perched behind him with a borrowed helmet too big for his head, felt the vibration of power beneath him, a far cry from the fear of hours before. "Why'd you help me?" he shouted over the rush of air. Ethan's response was lost to the gale, but his silhouette against the twilight spoke volumes. A man reclaiming his honor, one ride at a time. Unbeknownst to them, I'd watched from the shadows, a figure in a sleek car, phone in hand, reporting back to strings pulled in high places. The bully's father wasn't just a local hotshot, he was tied to the undercurrents of corruption Ethan had long avoided. And as the first stars pierced the sky, the call went out to the Iron Vipers. A brother's legacy hung in the balance, and the fight for justice was just beginning. Word of the square's incident spread like wildfire through Milford's veins, texts pinging, whispers in diners, the video already racking up views online. Ethan pulled up to a modest ranch-style house on the outskirts, the porch light welcoming like a beacon. Lucas's mother, a weary woman named Sarah with lines of exhaustion etched around her eyes, stepped out, her relief palpable. "Thank you," she said, hugging her son tight. "Heard what happened. You're a godsend." Ethan nodded, removing his helmet, the cool night air brushing his scar. "Just passing through, but if trouble follows, you call this." He handed her a card etched with the Viper's emblem, a serpent coiled around a shield. Promises weren't given lightly in his world. They were ironclad. As he rode off into the deepening dusk, the scent of pine and exhaust trailing him, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this was no random act. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a message from an old Viper contact. "Kid's uncle was Jax Riley, you remember?" The name hit like a gut punch. Jax, his war brother, gone too soon in an accident that smelled of cover-up. The promise resurfaced fully now. Protect his family, no matter the cost. By midnight, Ethan's garage on the edge of town echoed with the clank of tools as he prepped his bike for whatever storm brewed. The MMA gloves hung on the wall, relics of glory days. But tonight they symbolized more, a fighter's resolve against the dark. Lucas lay awake in his room, staring at the ceiling, the comic book forgotten. For the first time, heroism wasn't just ink on a page. It roared on two wheels, ready to defend the overlooked. And in the quiet hours before dawn, as Milford slept under a blanket of stars, the threads of fate tightened, drawing Ethan back into a battle where loyalty was the sharpest weapon. The push in the crowd was merely the spark. The inferno awaited. The first light of dawn crept over Milford's rolling hills like a hesitant promise, painting the sky in strokes of pale pink and gold. Ethan stood in his makeshift garage, the air thick with the metallic tang of oil and the faint lingering smoke from a pot of black coffee brewing on a hot plate. His Harley sat polished and ready, its engine still warm from a midnight test run, but sleep had evaded him like an old adversary. The message about Jax burned in his mind, a ghost rising from the sands of forgotten wars. Jax Riley, his blood brother, not by birth, but by the unbreakable bonds forged in foxholes and firefights, had vanished in a haze of official lies 5 years back. Accident on the job, they'd called it, but Ethan knew better. Whispers of corruption, a town official's grudge, and a cover-up that reeked of small-town power plays. And now Lucas, Jax's nephew, the boy he'd pulled from the dirt, stood at the center of it all. Ethan's calloused hands flexed involuntarily, tracing the faded tattoo on his forearm, a viper coiled around a dog tag, symbol of the Iron Vipers. The crew wasn't just riders, they were a patchwork family of vets, fighters, and wanderers who'd traded glory for grit. He'd walked away after Jax's death, burying the pain under miles of highway, but loyalty didn't fade like bruises. He pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over the group chat. One word, rally. Sent. The response came swift. Pings from across state lines, engines revving in distant garages. By sunrise, the roads leading into Milford would echo with their arrival, a thunder of chrome and resolve. Across town, in the dim kitchen of the modest ranch house, Sarah poured cereal for Lucas, her movements mechanical, shadowed by worry lines that deepened overnight. The boy poked at his bowl, the scrape of spoon against porcelain, the only sound breaking the tension. That biker. Ethan, he said to call if there's trouble. Her voice was a whisper, laced with the exhaustion of a single mother juggling shifts at the local diner, and the ghosts of her brother's unsolved fate. Jax had been her rock, the uncle who'd spun tales of adventure for Lucas before the accident stole him away. Now, with Derek's father, Sheriff Harlan, a man whose badge hid a web of favors and threats, breathing down their necks, fear coiled tighter than ever. Lucas looked up, his scraped cheek now bandaged, eyes bright with a spark Ethan had ignited. He meant it, Mom. Like in the comics, heroes show up. Sarah forced a smile, but it cracked at the edges. She'd seen the video online, the crowd's apathy turning to awe as the biker stepped in. Comments flooded in. Who is this guy? Finally, someone with guts. But she knew Milford's underbelly. Harlan's boy didn't get disciplined without repercussions. A knock at the door jolted her, too early for visitors. Peering through the curtain, she saw a sleek black SUV idling at the curb, its tinted windows hiding watchful eyes. Her heart pounded as she ushered Lucas to the back room, the scent of fresh dew from the yard mingling with her rising dread. Meanwhile, on the outskirts where cracked highways met dusty fields, the iron vipers converged like shadows gathering strength. First came Marcus, a burly ex-Marine with a prosthetic leg from the same deployment that had scarred Ethan, his chopper rumbling like a beast awakened. Then Lena, the crew's sharp-eyed mechanic and former nurse, her bike tricked out with custom exhaust that purred defiance. They pulled into Ethan's garage one by one, a convoy of 10 by the time the sun crested fully. Leather vests emblazoned with the serpent shield, faces weathered by roads and regrets. Heard the call, Marcus grunted, clapping Ethan on the back, the impact solid as a vow renewed. "Kids Jax's blood, we're in." Ethan nodded, the weight of their presence easing the knot in his chest. They gathered around a scarred wooden table, maps of Milford spread out like battle plans. The air hummed with low voices, the clink of coffee mugs, and the faint creak of leather as they leaned in. "It's not just a schoolyard scrap," Ethan explained, his gravelly tone cutting through the morning chill. "Derek's old man runs the show here. Sheriff with ties to developers eyeing Jax's old land. The accident was no fluke. They wanted him out to grab it cheap." Lena's eyes narrowed, her fingers drumming the table. "And the kid? Leverage?" Ethan confirmed with a grim nod. Lucas saw something that night, enough to make Harlan nervous. That's why the bullying ramped up. The group fell silent, the gravity of old promises settling like dust after a storm. Marcus broke it first. "We ride for family, Hawk. Chosen or blood doesn't matter. What's the play?" Ethan's gaze drifted to the horizon, where Milford's silhouette sharpened against the light. No grand assaults. The Vipers operated on honor's edge, subtle pressure, unyielding presence. "We shadow the boy, show Harlan we're watching, and dig up what really happened to Jax." Affirmations rippled through the room, fists bumping in quiet solidarity. As they mounted up, engines roaring to life in unison, the ground vibrated with purpose. The scent of exhaust and morning earth rose, a sensory vow that justice wouldn't wait. Back at the house, Sarah's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Stay out of it or the kid pays." Her hands trembled as she deleted it, but resolve hardened in her eyes. Lucas, peeking from the hallway, clutched the Viper card Ethan had given. "They're coming, Mom. I feel it." Outside, the SUV lingered a moment longer before peeling away, tires crunching gravel like a warning shot. By mid-morning, the Vipers patrolled the town's edges, their formation a silent sentinel. Ethan led the pack, wind slicing through his vest, the sun warming his scar as memories of Jax surfaced. Laughter in the barracks, a shared cigarette under starry skies. The oath, "Watch my back, brother, and if I'm gone, watch theirs." The road curved toward the school, where Lucas would face the day's echoes of humiliation. Whispers of the bikers had already spread, locals glancing from porches with a mix of awe and unease. Harlan's office, a squat brick building downtown, buzzed with activity. The sheriff paced, phone to ear, his face reddening at reports of outlaw scum rolling in. Ethan pulled over at an overlook, the valley sprawling below like a chessboard of loyalties. His phone lit up. "Sarah, they're here, thank you." A faint smile tugged at his lips, the first in years. But as a patrol car crested the hill behind him, lights flashing silently, tension coiled anew. The sheriff's web was tightening, but so was the Viper's circle. In the distance, the school's bell tolled, calling Lucas into the fray. Ethan revved his engine, the roar a declaration. Promises didn't break, they bent the world to keep them. The convoy moved out, chrome flashing in the sunlight, a river of steel flowing toward confrontation. Dust kicked up in their wake, the air alive with the growl of defiance. For Ethan, this ride wasn't about glory or the ring's roar. It was redemption's quiet thunder, honoring a fallen brother by shielding the innocent. Milford's secret simmered beneath the surface, but the Viper's arrival cracked the facade. Loyalty, once sparked, burned eternal, and the inferno was spreading. And now, I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel, and at what moments they reach you. The school bell's toll faded into the midday haze, leaving Milford High's courtyard bathed in the relentless glare of the sun. Dust motes danced in the air like fleeting regrets, stirred by the shuffle of students spilling out for lunch. Lucas gripped his backpack straps tighter, the Viper card tucked safely in his pocket like a talisman against the stares that followed him. Whispers slithered through the crowd, fragments of the fair's video, now a local legend, painting him as both victim and enigma. Derek and his crew lurked near the bleachers, their postures coiled with resentment, eyes darting like predators denied their kill. The bully's sneer had sharpened overnight, fueled by his father's barked orders over breakfast. "Handle it quiet, boy. No more spectacles." Across the street, Ethan idled his Harley at the curb, engine idling low like a watchful heartbeat. He'd arrived just as the final period ended, positioning himself with the casual vigilance of a sentinel. The Vipers fanned out subtly. Marcus parked at the corner gas station, nursing a coffee while scanning license plates. Lena circled the block on her sleek cruiser, her toolkit strapped behind like armor for unseen battles. The crew's presence was a whisper of thunder, not yet a storm, but enough to make the air hum with unspoken challenge. Ethan's scar itched under the heat, a reminder of fights won and lost, but this wasn't the octagon. This was a war of shadows, where a single wrong glance could unravel years of buried truth. Lucas spotted Ethan through the chain-link fence, a flicker of relief crossing his face amid the sea of backpacks and chatter. He veered toward the gate, avoiding the main path where Derek held court, but fate, cruel and cinematic, conspired otherwise. As he quickened his pace, a shoulder clipped him, intentional. From one of Derek's shadows, a lanky kid named Tyler with a smirk that begged for correction. Lucas stumbled, his bag spilling books across the gravel, pages fluttering like wounded birds. Laughter erupted from the group. Derek stepping forward with arms crossed, his voice a mocking drawl. "Clumsy today, freak, or still dreaming of your biker savior?" The courtyard tensed, a ripple of hesitation spreading as more students paused, phones half raised in morbid curiosity. No teachers in sight. The lunch rush had scattered them like leaves. Lucas knelt to gather his things, cheeks flushing, the bandage on his face pulling tight. Memories of the fair's humiliation surged back, but so did Ethan's words. Not anymore. He straightened slowly, meeting Derek's gaze with a spark of borrowed steel. "Leave me alone. It's over." Derek advanced, towering over him, the scent of cheap cologne mixing with the courtyard's faint aroma of cafeteria grease. "Over? My dad says otherwise. You think some road rat scares us?" His fist clenched, hovering like a threat unspoken, the crowd's silence a heavy shroud. But before the swing could land, the growl of engines pierced the standoff, 3 Vipers rolling up in formation, chrome catching the sun like blades unsheathed. Lena cut her bike across the street, blocking the gate with effortless precision, while Marcus dismounted from his spot, his prosthetic leg thudding solidly as he approached. Ethan was already moving, crossing the road in long strides, his boots crunching gravel with deliberate calm. The air thickened, charged with the leather and exhaust perfume of the riders. Derek faltered, his bravado cracking as Ethan's shadow fell over him. "Told you to walk away," Ethan said, voice a low rumble that carried no anger, only inevitability. He placed a hand on Lucas's shoulder, guiding him back a step, the gesture a shield woven from quiet strength. Tyler and the others shifted uneasily, their pack mentality fraying under the bikers' unblinking stares. Sheriff Harlan's patrol car screeched to a halt moments later, lights flashing without siren, a beacon of authority laced with panic. The man himself emerged, badge glinting, his uniform crisp, but his eyes stormy. Broad-shouldered and silver-haired, Harlan embodied Milford's facade of order. Yet Ethan saw the cracks, the same tells he'd read in opponents before a takedown, a twitch in the jaw, fingers flexing toward his holster. "What's this circus?" Harlan barked, striding forward, his gaze locking on Ethan. "You outlaws, stirring trouble on school grounds. I'll have you all in cuffs." Ethan met his stare evenly, the sun casting harsh lines across his face, highlighting the scar like a badge of survival. "No trouble here, Sheriff. Just making sure the kid gets home safe." The words hung heavy, laced with the subtext of Jax's ghost. The brother Harlan had buried under paperwork and lies. Lucas glanced between them, sensing the undercurrent, the air thick with history unspoken. Lena leaned against her bike, arms crossed, her nurse's instincts reading the tension like vital signs. Marcus positioned himself subtly, a wall of quiet menace. Harlan's lip curled, stepping closer to Ethan, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "This town's mine, Riley. You ride in like some vigilante, but I know your type. Stirring old dirt. That accident with your buddy. Closed book. Push it, and you'll join him." The threat landed like a feint, testing Ethan's resolve. Memories flashed, Jax's last letter, folded in Ethan's saddlebag, words of warning about land grabs and crooked deals. The sheriff's ties to developers weren't rumor. They were the rot-eating Milford from within, Jax the obstacle they'd removed. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he held his ground. The courtyard, now a frozen tableau. Students gawking from the edges, the wind whispering through the fence like a held breath. "Books closed on lies don't stay shut," he replied, gravel in his tone. "We're not here for a fight, but if you come for the boy, you'll meet the pack." Harlan's eyes narrowed, calculating the odds. 10 Vipers now visible, a convoy forming at the perimeter, engines idling in ominous harmony. He spat on the ground, the gesture raw and futile. "Watch your back, biker. Milford doesn't take kindly to meddlers." As Harlan retreated to his car, radio crackling with dispatches, the tension ebbed like a receding tide. Lucas exhaled, clutching his recovered books, gratitude shining in his eyes. He knows about Uncle Jax?" Ethan nodded once, steering him toward the bikes. "More than he wants. Your uncle was family to me. This ride, it's for him." The Vipers formed a loose escort, Lena offering Lucas a spare helmet with a wink. "Hop on, kid. Aunt Lena's got the steady wheel." As they pulled away, the school's shadow shrinking in the rear view, the road ahead curved toward confrontation. Mid-afternoon sun dipped toward the hills, casting long shadows over the convoy as they wound through Milford's backstreets. Ethan led, wind slicing his face. The sheriff's words fueling a fire long banked. At a roadside diner, the crew regrouped, booths filled with the clatter of plates and murmured plans. Sarah arrived soon after, pulling up in her battered sedan, her face a mask of weary determination. "Harlan paid a visit this morning." "A day," she said, sliding into the seat across from Ethan, the scent of diner coffee mingling with her faint perfume of vanilla and stress. "Threats. Says if I don't keep Lucas quiet about family matters, it'll get worse." Ethan's hand stilled on his mug, the ceramic warm against his palm. "Quiet about what?" Sarah hesitated, glancing at Lucas, who sat coloring with Lena nearby. "Jax. He confided in me before the end. Saw Harlan taking bribes from those land developers, shady deals to reroute the highway, displace folks like us. He was gathering proof, but then the crash. Lucas overheard something that night, playing outside. Harlan's been hounding us since." The pieces clicked, a mosaic of corruption. Jax's death no accident, but a silencing. Ethan's promise to his brother swelled, demanding action, not fists, but truth's unyielding blade. Marcus leaned in, voice a low thunder. We hit the records, quiet-like, viper style. Nods circled the table, loyalty binding them tighter than blood. As the sun arced lower, painting the diner in amber glows, Ethan felt the weight of redemption settle. The push in the crowd had unearthed more than dirt. It had revived a vow, pulling the vipers into Milford's fray. Harlan's web trembled, but the rider's circle held firm. Outside, engines revved softly, ready for the evening patrol. Lucas looked up from his drawing, a crude sketch of bikes and heroes, and smiled at Ethan. In that innocent gaze, Jax lived on, urging them forward. The road called, chrome gleaming with purpose as shadows lengthened and secrets stirred. Justice wasn't a roar, it was the steady hum of those who refused to look away. The diner's neon sign flickered to life as the sun surrendered to the encroaching dusk, casting a ruddy glow over the parking lot where the Iron Viper's bikes stood like silent guardians. Inside, the air was thick with the aroma of frying onions and strong brew, a comforting haze that masked the undercurrent of resolve thickening around the booth. Ethan leaned back, his broad frame casting a shadow across the scarred formica table, eyes distant as Sarah's words echoed in his mind. Jax's proof, scattered notes, a hidden drive, whispers of rerouted highways that would swallow homes like Lucas's, had been the spark for his brother's downfall. Harlan's bribes weren't just ink on ledgers, they were chains binding Milford to silence. Sarah stirred her coffee, the spoon clinking softly against the mug, her gaze fixed on Lucas across the room, where he sketched with Lena's steady encouragement. He was just a kid then, playing in the yard when Jax came home that night. Overheard the argument, something about evidence and back off or else. Harlan showed up minutes later, all smiles. But Jax, he changed after that. Drove off and never came back. Her voice cracked, the weight of years pressing down, but she straightened, meeting Ethan's steel gaze. I've kept it buried for Lucas's sake. But now, with the bullying, the threats, it's like they're trying to scare him into forgetting. Ethan's fingers drummed the table edge, a rhythm born of cage fights and road miles, channeling the storm inside. The Viper card in Sarah's hand felt like an extension of his own, a promise etched in leather and chrome. No more burying, he said, voice low and unyielding. We dig it up, together. Marcus nodded from his seat, his prosthetic leg stretched out, a testament to battles shared with Jax under foreign suns. Count me in, Hawk. That sheriff's got more skeletons than a graveyard shift. I know a guy in county records. Quiet access, no traces. Lena glanced up from Lucas's drawing, her mechanic's hands smudged with pencil lead, a soft smile fading into determination. I'll handle the tech side. Pull what we can from old backups, but we move careful. Harlan's got eyes everywhere. The crew murmured agreement, the booth a council of outcasts turned allies, bound by the invisible threads of chosen family. Outside, the evening breeze carried the faint hum of distant traffic, a reminder that Milford's roads hid more than potholes. They concealed the veins of corruption pulsing beneath. As the group dispersed into the twilight, Ethan walked Sarah and Lucas to her sedan, the gravel crunching underfoot like brittle bones. The boy's small hand slipped into his, a gesture of trust that pierced deeper than any opponent's hook. "Will you stay?" Lucas asked, voice barely above the wind's whisper. Ethan crouched, leveling his scarred face with the child's, the diner's light haloing them in warm amber. "Long as it takes, kid. Your uncle taught me that. Stick by your word, no matter the miles." He ruffled Lucas's hair gently, the touch evoking ghosts of what might have been, a fatherly echo in a life defined by loss. The convoy reformed under the emerging stars. engines purring to life in a symphony of restrained power. Ethan led the way back to Sarah's ranch, the Vipers flanking like a protective phalanx, headlights cutting through the gathering dark. Milford's outskirts blurred past, faded billboards advertising land for sale, fields whispering secrets to the night. At the house, porch light spilling golden welcome, they idled as Sarah unlocked the door. "Thank you," she said again, this time with steel in her tone, handing Ethan a small key from her chain. "Jax's old lockbox, in the attic. Whatever's there. It's yours to use." He pocketed it, the metal cool against his palm, a tangible piece of the promise revived. As the bikes pulled away, dust trailing like a comet's tail, Ethan felt the night's chill seep through his vest, sharpening his senses. The road curved toward his garage, but detours called, first to a shadowed payphone on the edge of town, where Marcus's contact confirmed records hall access at midnight under cover of a fabricated maintenance call. The Vipers split tasks seamlessly, loyalty's engine driving them forward without falter. Hours later, in the dim confines of the county archives, a squat building reeking of musty paper and fluorescent hum, Ethan and Marcus slipped through a side door, Lena's hacked code granting silent entry. Flashlights sliced the gloom, beams dancing over dusty shelves like searchlights in fog. Files whispered as they were pulled, the air heavy with the scent of aged ink and forgotten truths. Jax's name surfaced in a yellowed folder. Accident reports, suspiciously pristine, with Harlan's signature looped like a noose. But deeper, a memo, bribes funneled through shell companies, highway plans redrawn to favor developers, Jax marked as liability. Ethan's breath caught, the scar on his jaw tightening as he traced the lines. "This is it," he murmured, snapping photos with a burner phone, the clicks echoing softly. Marcus stood watch, his frame a bulwark against the door. Harlan buried him for this. Land grabs worth millions, folks like Sarah displaced. Rage simmered, not hot and blind, but cold and precise, the fighter's edge honed for justice, not vengeance. They exfiltrated as quietly as shadows, the night air greeting them with crisp relief, bikes waiting like faithful steeds. Back at the garage, under the harsh glow of a single bulb, the crew reconvened. Lena synced the photos to a secure drive, her fingers flying over a laptop keyboard, the clatter a counterpoint to the ticking clock. "It's solid," she confirmed, eyes gleaming, enough to crack his badge wide open. "But he'll come hard. Expect pushback." Ethan nodded, unfolding Jax's last letter beside the evidence, the paper creased from years in his saddlebag, words of brotherhood, a plea to protect his own if the worst came. The promise, once a whisper, now roared in his veins. Dawn's first light filtered through grimy windows as they planned the next move. Anonymous tips to state investigators, Vipers shadowing Harlan's patrols to keep pressure steady. Lucas's safety was paramount, no direct confrontation yet, but a net closing with moral inexorability. Ethan stepped outside, the cool morning mist clinging to his skin, coffee's bitter edge on his tongue. In the distance, Milford stirred, oblivious to the storm brewing. The push that started it all had unearthed roots deep and tangled. But redemption's path was clear. Honor the fallen, shield the living. Let truth be the reckoning. Sarah's phone buzzed as she prepared breakfast. A text from Ethan. "We have what we need. Hold tight." Relief washed over her, mingling with the sizzle of eggs in the pan. Lucas bounded in, backpack ready, the Viper card now a badge pinned inside his jacket. "Today's different," he said. Eyes alight. Across town, Harlan slammed his office door, reports of biker sightings fueling his paranoia, the web of lies fraying at the edges. The Vipers mounted up once more, engines growling defiance against the rising sun. Ethan revved his Harley, the vibration a pulse of purpose, wind tugging at his vest as they rode toward the school. Harlan's car prowled the streets, a predator sensing the hunt turn. Tension coiled like a spring, the air electric with impending clash. Promises didn't yield to threats. They forged ahead, binding broken souls into unbreakable steel. Milford's facade cracked further, justice's light piercing the dark, one steady mile at a time. If this story is stirring something in you, hit that like button to show your support and help spread this tale of quiet courage. The morning sun climbed higher, bathing Milford High's parking lot in a relentless golden haze that turned the asphalt into a shimmering mirage. Ethan eased his Harley to a stop at the edge of the lot, the engine's low rumble fading into the chatter of arriving students. Backpacks slung and sneakers scuffing pavement, dust swirled gently in the breeze, carrying the faint, acrid scent of exhaust mixed with the earthy tang of nearby fields. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's under the brim of his shades, scanned the perimeter. Vipers positioned like chess pieces. Marcus at the far end, leaning against his bike with arms crossed, a silent deterrent. Lena idling nearby, her cruiser a sleek shadow ready to intercept. The crew's arrival hadn't gone unnoticed. Whispers rippled through the clusters of teens, phones buzzing with fresh rumors of the biker invasion. Lucas emerged from Sarah's sedan, waving goodbye as she drove off toward her diner shift, her taillights disappearing around the bend like a fleeting hope. The boy walked with a tentative confidence, the Viper card's edge pressing against his chest like a hidden armor, but the courtyard's undercurrent hummed with malice. Derek and his pack huddled by the flagpole, their glares slicing through the morning light, Tyler cracking his knuckles with feigned nonchalance. The bully's father had doubled down overnight, Harlan's patrol car a constant specter on the town's fringes, lights flashing in warning bursts. Ethan dismounted, boots hitting the ground with a solid thud that echoed his resolve, the leather of his vest creaking softly as he fell into step beside Lucas. "You stick close today," Ethan murmured, voice a gravelly anchor amid the school's rising din, the slam of lockers echoing from open doors, the shrill laughter masking deeper fears. Lucas nodded, his scraped cheek now a faint pink shadow under the bandage, eyes wide but steady. "Like a team." The question hung simple and profound, evoking the brotherhood Ethan had lost in desert sands. He clapped a hand on the boy's shoulder, the warmth of the gesture cutting through the chill of impending storm. "Yeah, kid. Team." The first period bell tolled, a metallic clang that scattered the crowd inward, but tension lingered like smoke after a fire. Ethan lingered outside, perched on his bike, the sun warming the chrome until it gleamed like polished steel. His mind replayed the attic key's weight in his pocket, Jax's lockbox waiting back at the ranch, a Pandora's trove of final clues. The evidence from the archives burned in his burner phone. Memos of bribes, altered plans, Harlan's signature a venomous scrawl. But proof alone wasn't enough. It needed teeth, a way to pierce the sheriff's armor without dragging innocence into the crossfire. Loyalty demanded precision, not chaos. The Viper's code, etched deeper than tattoos. Mid-morning brought a shift in the air, the breeze picking up to carry whispers of trouble from the principal's office. A teacher, harried and bespectacled, approached Ethan with clipboard in hand, her heels clicking sharply against the sidewalk. "Sir, you'll need to leave. School policy. No loitering especially, but with motorcycles." Her voice wavered, eyes flicking to the Viper emblem. But Ethan saw the flicker of understanding there. She'd watched the fair video, heard the town's murmurs of overdue reckoning. He removed his shades, meeting her gaze with the calm intensity of a man who'd stared down heavier judgments. "Not loitering, ma'am. Protecting. Call it community service." She hesitated, the clipboard trembling slightly, then nodded once before retreating. But the encounter drew eyes. Harlan's deputy, a wiry man named Rollins, with a mustache like a broom bristle, pulled up in a cruiser blocking the lot's entrance. He stepped out, hand resting casually on his belt, the badge catching sunlight like a false promise. "Riley, sheriff wants a word, now." The words slithered out, laced with the authority of a man used to compliance, the air thickening with the scent of hot rubber from his tires. Ethan's jaw set, scar pulling tight, but he didn't rise to the bait. This wasn't the ring. No bell to start the fight. "Tell Harlan I'm occupied. Got a promise to keep." Rollins smirked, leaning against the cruiser, radio crackling faintly with dispatches. "Promises don't mean squat here. That kid's stirring up old ghosts. Better rein him in before someone gets hurt." The veiled threat landed like a jab, Ethan's mind flashing to Jax's crash site. Twisted metal in a ravine, official reports too clean, too quick. He stood slowly, towering over the deputy, the shadow of his frame swallowing the man whole. "Hurt? That's your boss's playbook. We're just reading the fine print." Marcus revved his engine from across the street. A low growl underscoring the standoff, Lena circling closer like a hawk on the wing. Rollins backed off, muttering into his radio, the cruiser peeling away with a spray of gravel that stung like spite. Inside the school, Lucas navigated the halls with Ethan's words as his compass, but the pressure mounted. Derek cornered him at his locker, the metal door slamming shut like a trap. "Think your biker daddy scares me? My old man's got the whole town wrapped." Tyler flanked him, shoving Lucas's shoulder, books tumbling once more in an echo of the fair's shame. The hallway blurred with onlookers, the fluorescent hum overhead buzzing like trapped anger. Lucas's heart pounded, fists clenching, not from fear now, but a spark of defiance Ethan had kindled. "You're wrong. It's changing." Before Derek could retort, the principal's voice boomed over the intercom, calling for an assembly, urgent, about community safety. Lucas slipped away, pulse racing, emerging into the courtyard where Ethan waited, the midday sun now beating down like judgment. "They tried again," the boy admitted, his voice steady despite the tremor. Ethan's eyes darkened, scanning the building's facade as if reading its secrets. "Good you held. That's the fight that counts." By lunch, the assembly unfolded in the gym, the air stale with the scent of polished wood and nervous sweat. Students filed in under the watchful eyes of faculty, Harlan himself striding to the podium like a king in his domain, uniform starched to intimidation. His speech dripped with false concern. "Outsiders disrupting our peace. Bullying ends with rules, not vigilantes." But his gaze locked on Lucas in the bleachers, a predatory glint that promised retribution. Ethan, barred from entry, paced outside, phone vibrating with Lena's text. Harlan's men circling the ranch. Sarah's safe. Vipers en route. The pieces accelerated, Rollins's cruiser tailing Marcus, a false traffic stop turning into a shakedown. Ethan mounted up, the Harley's roar cutting through the gym's muffled echoes, leading a splinter group toward the ranch. Wind whipped his face, tearing at the edges of his vest, the road's vibrations sinking with his pulse. Jax's letter fluttered in his mind. "If they come for mine, make 'em pay in truth." At the house, they arrived to find Sarah barricaded inside, windows shuttered, the porch a fortified line. Two deputies loitered at the curb, their presence a blatant intimidation, but the Viper's convoy thundered in, encircling them like a noose of chrome. Ethan dismounted first, striding forward with Marcus at his flank, the air electric with restrained thunder. "This ends now," he called to the deputies, voice carrying over the idling engines. Sarah peered from the curtain, her silhouette a beacon of quiet strength. The standoff stretched, seconds ticking like a fuse, until Rollins arrived, Harlan's orders barking from the dash. "Stand down, Riley, or we arrest the lot." But Ethan held firm, pulling the lockbox key from his pocket, the metal glinting like a challenge. "Arrest us for what?" "Keeping promises." The deputies shifted, unease rippling through their ranks as Lena uploaded the archive photos to a secure line. Anonymous tips firing to state offices, the web of corruption unraveling in digital threads. Harlan's radio exploded with panic, his empire's foundations cracking under the weight of exposure. As the sun arced toward afternoon, the deputies retreated, tails between legs, the ranch's dust settling like a sigh of relief. Sarah emerged, embracing Lucas, who'd arrived via school bus, the boy burying his face in her side. Ethan watched from his bike, the crew forming a protective arc, the horizon stretching endless. Redemption wasn't a single blow. It was this, the slow grind of loyalty eroding lies. But Harlan's desperation loomed, shadows lengthening with the light, promising a final clash where promises would be tested to their breaking point. The road ahead twisted, but the Vipers rode united, engines humming the anthem of the unbroken. The afternoon sun dipped low over Milford's ragged skyline, stretching shadows across the ranch's weathered fence like fingers grasping at fading light. Dust hung in the air from the deputies' hasty retreat, a gritty veil that settled on the Vipers' bikes like a badge of endurance. Ethan stood at the porch steps, his silhouette broad against the golden haze, the lockbox key now joined by Jax's letter in his pocket, a talisman of vows kept. Sarah held Lucas close, the boy's face pressed to her side, his small frame trembling not from fear, but from the raw edge of relief. The air carried the sharp tang of overheated engines and sun-baked earth, mingling with the faint, comforting scent of Sarah's vanilla soap as she finally exhaled. "Thank you," she whispered again, her voice threading through the quiet like a lifeline. Ethan's nod was subtle, the scar along his jaw catching the light, a reminder of battles etched in skin and soul. "Family doesn't thank family," he replied, the words heavy with the weight of brotherhood lost and reclaimed. Marcus clapped him on the back, the sound solid as a gavel, while Lena checked her phone. The tips had landed, state investigators already en route, their digital trail a noose tightening around Harlan's neck. The sheriff's radio silence spoke volumes. Panic had given way to cornered fury. As the convoy reformed, engines rumbling to life in a low chorus, a distant wail pierced the horizon. Sirens, not the deputies, but Harlan's own, barreling down the dirt road like a storm unleashed. The sheriff's cruiser skidded into view, kicking up clouds of red dust that choked the sky, his face a mask of desperation behind the wheel. He slammed to a halt yards from the porch, door flying open before the dust settled, his uniform disheveled, badge askew like a crown slipping. "Riley!" he bellowed, striding forward with gun hand twitching, eyes wild under the brim of his hat. The Vipers tensed, bikes forming an instinctive barrier, chrome glinting warnings in the dying light. "You think this ends with some photos and biker trash?" Harlan spat, voice cracking like dry timber, the scent of his sweat cutting through the evening breeze. He jabbed a finger toward the house, gaze locking on Lucas, who shrank back slightly. "That kid's meddling cost me everything. Jax poked the bear, thought he was a hero. Now you drag his ghost into my town?" The confession slipped out unbidden, fueled by the unraveling of his empire. Calls flooding his office, developers pulling funding, whispers of federal probes echoing from the state line. Ethan's stance didn't waver, boots rooted like ancient oaks, the wind tugging at his vest with insistent whispers. "Jax wasn't meddling," Ethan said, tone even as polished stone, stepping forward to shield the porch. "He was standing up for land that wasn't yours to steal, for folks like Sarah who built lives here. You silenced him for greed, crash reports faked, bribes buried, but promises outlast lies." The words hung in the charged air, the crew's engines idling like a heartbeat. Marcus's hands steady on his handlebars, Lena's eyes scanning for backup. Harlan's face twisted, a vein pulsing at his temple, the man who'd ruled Milford through fear now exposed in the harsh glare of truth. He lunged then, not with a shot, but a wild swing, rage boiling over into futile fury, a desperate grasp at control. Ethan sidestepped with the grace of his ring days, catching the sheriff's arm in a grip honed by octagons and oaths. twisting just enough to drop him to one knee in the dust. No bones cracked, no blood spilled. Just the quiet authority of a man who'd learned justice wasn't in breaking bodies, but in breaking chains. "It's over, Harlan," Ethan murmured, releasing him as state vehicles crested the hill, lights flashing blue and red like judgment's arrival. The sheriff slumped, breath ragged, the fight draining from him like sand through fingers. Investigators swarmed in minutes, badges flashing under the emerging stars, cuffing Harlan amid a flurry of questions and Miranda rights. The air buzzed with radios and murmured arrests, the corruption's web collapsing in real time. Developers named, ledgers seized, Jax's death reclassified as no accident, but a calculated hit. Sarah watched from the porch, Lucas at her side, the boy's eyes wide with a mix of awe and closure. "Uncle Jax, he was right?" he asked softly, clutching the Viper card. Ethan turned, crouching to his level, the cool dusk wrapping around them like a blanket. He was. And now we honor him by living free. As the cruisers hauled Harlan away, taillights fading into the night, the Vipers lingered, a circle of leather and loyalty under the ranch's porch light. Marcus raised a fist in salute, Lena offering Sarah a spare helmet with a grin, "For when you need a ride out of trouble." Ethan lingered longest, the weight of redemption settling like a long-held breath released. The promise to Jax to watch over his blood, to stand against the dark, had pulled him from the highway's anonymity, mending fractures in his soul 1 mile at a time. He ruffled Lucas's hair, the gesture fatherly and final. "You ever need anything, kid, the road knows my name." Sarah stepped forward, her hand brushing his arm, eyes shining with unspoken gratitude. "Stay for dinner. Least we can do." Ethan hesitated, the pull of the open road warring with this newfound anchor. But in her gaze, he saw Jax's echo, a second chance that the family war had stolen. "Yeah," he said simply, the word avow renewed. The crew dismounted, filling the yard with easy laughter, the scent of grilling burgers soon rising from the backyard fire pit, stars wheeling overhead like witnesses to quiet victory. Night deepened over Milford, the town's underbelly purged, streets humming with tentative peace. Ethan sat on the porch steps later, coffee steaming in his hands, Lucas dozing inside with dreams of heroes unchained. The Harley waited, faithful steed, but for the first time the horizon didn't call alone. Redemption wasn't an end, but a beginning. Promises kept weaving new threads, binding biker and boy, mother and guardian into a chosen kin. In the distance, engines faded as the Vipers patrolled onward, their thunder a legacy of honor, ensuring no shadow fell unchecked. The push in the crowd had sparked it all, a single act of courage rippling into justice's tide. Ethan gazed at the stars, Jax's letter now shared and at rest. The scar on his jaw, a map no longer of loss, but of light. Milford breathed easier, its secrets laid bare, and in that fragile dawn of truth, loyalty proved the strongest ride of all. Thank you for riding along on this journey of honor and heart. If these tales of quiet courage resonate with you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. We've got more stories of redemption waiting on the horizon.